Hi, everyone. Welcome to session 4 of the World of Royalties webinar. We will be going in depth on backclaiming your royalties today. We will have team members monitoring the chat box that a lot of you are already talking in. So you could feel free to ask questions throughout. We will try to answer those during, if not for the Q&A session. If we don't get to them, we will try to reach out individually if we can. As always, you'll receive a link in the email after the webinar is over so that you could rewatch this and the previous sessions, and you'll be able to download some resources as well. We are your hosts for today. I'm Noelle.
I'm Lorenzo.
We're both on the client acquisition team, but I focus more on inbound leads while Lorenzo focuses on outbound. Lorenzo could tell you a little bit about himself since this is his first time.
I'm gonna I'll talk about like what I do at Songtrust specifically. It's kind of an A&R role. I do outreach, so I target specific artists or bands or anything like that, and I go after them and I just like inform them a little bit about what we do, kind of what we're doing right now, and hopefully get them to register with Songtrust and get them all set up for publishing. My background is I grew up in Europe, playing in bands out there and doing music stuff and kind of getting acclimated to that world. And then I went to school in Syracuse, New York, for music business for 4 years, and then I ended up here. And this is actually my first job, and I've been here for 2 years, kind of digging into Songtrust and publishing. And excited to do this webinar for the first time.
Fun facts, Lorenzo and I actually both were on the publishing operations team as temps before we were on the client acquisition team.
So we were working on the back end, handling the songs and stuff, making sure all the data was correct before putting it through, and now we're on the front end of the front line.
Which was really helpful to see just how the process of song registrations work, because now we're much more educated on how the process goes so that when we are talking to clients, we actually know what we're talking about.
Yeah, and we also, just to say this, but like we also saw the tough part. We learned how this works by being here, and we know how hard it can be to understand some of this stuff. So hopefully we come in with that perspective a little bit, and it'll help.
Yeah. So today, after the session, hopefully you'll have a better understanding of what retroactive royalties are, and know the average length of time that publishing can go back and collect. And we will also talk a little bit about black box royalties and how you can avoid losing out on those royalties. So the general focus is just how you can access those royalties that are from past streams of your music.
I'm gonna help you get paid.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So the first thing we're gonna talk about is what it means to be a rights owner. So when you write a song, you're with your friends or alone, and you're in your room and you record it. After you've written it, you write and record a song. You've essentially already created a body of work. It's something that you have ownership of. So the first thing is like, how do you make sure that you're capitalizing on that? And so the next thing to do is putting out your music and making sure that it's available and it's something that people can consume, and you can distribute it through things like distributors or a label, and make sure that the work that you've created is getting into the consumer's hands, and that's like the very most important part. So you kind of want to talk about this?
Well, once the music is out there and it's getting consumed, since you have the right to distribute it, perform it, make derivative works, and display it publicly, royalties are generated from all those uses. And the different types of royalties, as many of you may know, are mechanical, performance, and microsync.
So we're going to talk a little bit about that, I think.
This is just the diagram to show everybody how an original song is split up to the composition and the master recording royalties. On the left, for the composition royalties, that's what publishers deal with, what we deal with here at Songtrust. They're broken down into performance and mechanical royalties. Those performance royalties are broken down into the writer share and publisher share, and then the mechanical royalties are only paid out to publishers. So those two little red highlighted circles are the areas where Songtrust helps individual artists, publishers, and labels that wouldn't be able to access that before. We help them access those on a global scale.
Yeah, and so on the master side, that's like what a label usually would traditionally look after, or sorry, there's a siren going by. I don't know if you can hear it. Or if you're putting out your music through a distributor and the money that you're receiving on a monthly basis from Spotify and iTunes or Apple Music, anywhere you're selling your music or it's being streamed, that's what the master side will be taken care of. And a lot of people, that's an easy thing for people to grasp. The composition side is a little bit more complicated, and there's a lot of levels and company or organizations that are in charge of getting that money and paying it out to you. And yeah, that's kind of what we're here to explain, how all those different parts work.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about the different types of royalties. So for the performance royalties, which are obviously generated when your song is publicly performed, but that doesn't only mean live performances and radio. It also is generated from streaming services like Spotify, Apple Music, all of the major ones. Yeah. And also interactive radio like paid Pandora accounts. This gets really confusing because non-paid Pandora accounts go to something totally different. But if anybody has questions about that, you could ask or watch the previous sessions.
The easiest way for me to kind of visualize what a performance royalty is, whenever your music is played in a public space or you're playing it in public space, and a lot of Spotify and stuff get behind that, and they will pay out those royalties accordingly. But it's also up to the bars, the venues, the restaurants that are playing the music, and they're responsible they pay a license fee every month to BMI, ASCAP, or whatever country you're in. They have to pay a fee to play music there, and then that money is divided up, and then people are getting a percentage based on their market share. It gets very complicated in that end, but the basic principle of it is, if your music is being played publicly, you're owed money.
Yeah. And then for mechanical royalties, those are generated when your song is digitally streamed or physically reproduced into a CD, a vinyl, or a digital download like on iTunes or Amazon, and also from those streaming services such as Spotify and Apple Music. So the most important takeaway is that when your song is streamed, you're generating both performance and mechanical royalties. So it's not just enough to be only with your PRO.
Yeah.
You have to be with a publishing administrator that will be registering your works at the mechanical societies and on a global scale to earn those.
And that's where it kind of a lot of people get very confused about how this works, because a lot of people think that when they're with a PRO, like ASCAP or BMI, that they're totally covered in terms of publishing and they're handling it themselves. They have their own publishing entity. There's actually an entirely separate royalty that in publishing that isn't being collected by those companies. And that's where you need an actual publisher to handle that, or publishing administrator to help you get those mechanical royalties from streaming, which is, as we all know, like a very big part of how people are making their money in music. So we'll get back to that in a little bit, but it's a really important part of what we do at Songtrust and what a lot of publishing is collecting on these days.
Yeah, and lastly, we have the microsync royalties, which we went into detail in session 3. If anybody hasn't seen that, I recommend watching it. We had Julia on here, who is one of our YouTube specialists here, and she gave a lot of valuable information about those YouTube royalties. Okay, so typically how you would earn royalties is you finish your song, the song earns royalties from uses and streams like we just talked about, and then the songwriters would get paid royalties for their composition. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't always work out that way. So in most cases, and what we see a lot with our clients here at Songtrust, is once a song is finished and the song earns royalties, the songwriter payout is interrupted due to unregistered songs, the songwriter not being affiliated with the PRO, them not having a publishing company to be registering their works at the mechanical societies, and incorrect data that exists at a lot of these societies. So these unclaimed royalties go into a retroactive wait period for about 2 to 3 years.
And this is really honestly the most common situation for a lot of writers, because little things like a hyphen in your name or an accent or a middle name that you sometimes use and sometimes don't can mess up your entire collection on the publishing side. So it's really important to have this done correctly and make sure that all these steps are taken care of even before you're releasing music, just so you're sure that when you're everything's inputted correctly and we're handling it all the right way. So yeah, and that's kind of what we at Songtrust kind of aim to fix a little bit and prevent this from happening. So from the get-go, our clients and artists are getting the money that they're owed right away.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably one of the most questions that I get when I'm talking with clients is, can you get me the royalties that have been generated in the past? Like my song was really popular in 2016.
Yeah.
And even if your song came out in 2010, but it doesn't get popular like on Spotify or the streaming services until 2016, we would be able to collect those royalties as long as they're still with the societies. We could still collect on them.
Yeah, they're just waiting to be collected in a lot of these places, and when we go to them and we deliver, you know, the right names and the right codes, hopefully that we can just extract that money from their accounts and bring it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is actually, like, honestly so common that, you know, on my end, on the outreach side, I'm talking to people that have, you know, stream really well or sell really well, and they're really, you know, they haven't figured out their publishing yet, but it's really something that they're trying to figure out. A lot of them have these same issues, and they have the same issues with the PROs, and they need help with all this stuff too. So it's a universal issue that we aim to help with.
Yeah. So another question that we get really often is, can I collect retroactive royalties independently without a publisher? And the answer is probably not.
Yeah. We started making a slide for this, kind of outlining all the things that you would have to figure out, and it honestly wasn't even worth putting up because it's just very confusing, and you have to contact international publishing, you know, PROs to figure this out. It just is not really worth even doing. You'll spend more money trying to figure that out than actually going through an administrator who has all these connections already set up and this network already built for this purpose. So this is like another question that comes up a lot, like, why would I need a publishing administrator? Why do I need to do this stuff? And at the end of the day, it's because there's a lot of disorganization in publishing, and there isn't just a simple solution yet. And actually, in a lot of ways, we are the simple solution because we have this network that we work with on a daily basis, and we're always communicating with. And all it takes is for you to add the songs into our system, and we handle it all for you. Yeah.
Which is very appealing to some people, that they don't have to enter their songs into their PRO.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times people are like, wow, I don't have to go on BMIs or ASCAP or wherever society you're from and register individually anymore.
Yeah.
So now getting into what black box royalties are. So once that time period that we spoke about in the previous slide is up and the societies still don't know who to release that money to, the money gets placed into what is called the black box, which sounds really scary.
It's kind of scary.
And it is pretty scary because your money basically disappears forever. So each society will release those royalties to their members based on market share. So essentially it just goes to the top publishers in the market.
In simple terms, like, if you don't have some of this stuff figured out, or there was an error that wasn't followed up on, and your songs are generating money because they're being played or you're performing or any of that stuff, and they don't have the correct codes, it just sits in this bank account essentially called the black box. And then after a certain amount of time, after 2 to 3 years, usually they sit on it for that amount of time, that money is redistributed to top earners like Drake and not you. And I don't know how you feel about that, but personally, I don't think that's fair. So get this stuff in order so that Drake doesn't get more money.
Yeah.
And we'll all win.
So that it can go to the actual owners of the music.
Yeah. It's a tricky thing to talk about that sometimes because it sounds so fake, so evil.
Yeah, but
it's real.
Yeah. If you guys remember Elizabeth from the previous sessions, she actually dressed up as the black box for Halloween 2 years ago, and she came in second for our Halloween costume contest, which was really funny. But as a thank you for joining today's session, we'd like to offer you a 20% discount for the one-time registration fee that we have at SongTrust. You will see the offer by the chat box. You could click on it and you'll just be taken right to the registration page. And the code will not be automatically applied, and it's case sensitive. So just make sure that you copy and paste it, or just remember what the capital letters are. And this offer will be available until the end of the webinar.
Definitely go up and do that if you can.
So yeah, just a little bit about here at SongTrust. We are a global publishing administrator. So we have relationships with over 45 societies around the world, where we register our clients' work and make sure that they're receiving all of their royalties, including those retroactive royalties. And we represent over 150,000 songwriters, 20,000 publishers for over 1 million copyrights that we have in our system right now.
Yeah, and that's kind of an indication of, like, when we talk about these PROs having a lot of issues with, you know, upkeep and making sure that everyone's getting paid. You have to consider how many millions of songs are going through their system every day. So we try to aim and make sure that the people that are with us at least are getting the right treatment and are, receiving the accurate royalties and everything is in the system correctly.
Yeah, we have people on our team here who are in contact with these societies every single day.
Yeah.
So when people do have conflicting claims or they have questions about their catalog, we're usually able to contact the exact society where the issue is happening and get to the bottom of it much faster than we usually expect.
Yeah. And so it's nice too if you have some of these issues that we're talking about. You can just, and you have a Songtrust account, you can just go into the chat box on the account and ask, there's an issue, there's 3 versions of this song out, and I don't know why BMI did this. We can help, fix those problems.
Yeah.
We have a whole team dedicated to that, and it's good to do it.
Yeah, and just a little bit about our terms and how they differ from the traditional publishing deal, which is usually what people think of when they hear like somebody got a publishing deal in the press or something. It's usually a traditional publishing deal where they take about 50%, sometimes less, of your copyright and of all of your potential earnings. At Songtrust, you keep 100% of your copyright. We're just administering on your catalog, so we're just registering the songs and collecting the royalties. You're able to control your sync rights.
Yeah, I mean, you can read through this as you're looking at it with us, but one of the overall themes is there's a lot of transparency, and it's a super artist-friendly deal. We don't want to hold people into, we're not holding anyone back. If an opportunity comes along for you to graduate from Songtrust, we want to encourage that. The purpose of the company for a lot of people that we're working with is a place for, while they're still, new, or they want to remain independent, this is an option for them that previously didn't exist. And so that's kind of our main goal here, is to make sure that everyone has the equal opportunity to collect on their publishing, which before Songtrust wasn't really an option. And also, not give away ownership of your music, which is a really big part of why I feel comfortable talking about Songtrust like this, because traditionally publishing deals are not like this. And if you look back in the history of publishing, a lot of people got majorly screwed over by giving away a lot of these rights. And so we are dedicated to not taking that away from people, and so they can retain their ownership.
Yeah, and something that I always found really cool about Songtrust was that no matter if like we're working with a publisher who has 20 writers and millions of streams, or if we're working with just one individual artist who is just registering their first song, we treat everybody the same, and everybody's songs get registered at the same pace. So it's not like any priority to high priority clients. We treat like all of our clients the same, which I always thought was really cool.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of people, but at the end of the day, it's fairly easy to keep track of it on our end and make sure that when there's an issue that's brought to light to us, that we can help fix it. So we really try to stay on top of it. Communication is a vital part of this, and we're constantly, like all of us are constantly communicating with prospective clients or people who are already clients who need help, and we really aim to make sure that their catalog is clean and ready to make that money.
Yeah, make that money.
Yeah.
I know a lot of you have been probably asking questions in the chat box, but we do have a few frequently asked questions that we wanted to clear up. And I think one of the ones that I get the most is, can you collect retroactive royalties from YouTube? And the answer is yes and no, because you can only collect royalties off of a video once an ad is placed. And
there's a kind of an obstacle in the way of that. Do you remember the rules? It's like 10,000 subscribers or something.
We went through the guidelines for monetization last session, and essentially it's just you need to have 4,000 views on the video and 1,000 subscribers on the channel. And if you don't have that, the ad won't be placed. But once that ad is placed, once, say, you have Songtrust handling your catalog, and if you have us delivering your content to YouTube, then we will place claims on videos that fit those guidelines, and then from that point forward, royalties can be collected.
It's a little tricky, but it's great if you have a YouTube channel and you're a partner and you're monetizing your videos. It's really important to make sure that those are claimed through us, and we can also just collect that publishing money from YouTube directly as well.
Does Songtrust collect from SoundCloud, and can I collect retroactively from them?
This is a tricky question, just because it's always coming up. But the answer is no, we don't collect from SoundCloud. Oh, we do.
Well, retroactively, the problem is Songtrust just changed their guidelines for royalty payouts. So we're still trying to figure those out as far as what it means for retroactive royalties.
Okay.
But we'll just move on to, is there a difference between my retroactive performance and retroactive mechanicals? Not really.
Well, you can't actually collect. Oh no, sorry, you're right.
Yeah, there isn't really a difference between them, but we've just seen more luck in the past being able to attain retroactive mechanicals than we have with performance. But traditionally, there's not really a difference.
Yeah. There's some people get a little. The reason I was saying no is because some people get confused with the writer share and the publisher share on the performance side, and there isn't a writer share on the mechanical side. There's some weird differences between the two, and that's one of them.
Which you will be able to see when you replay, but you could look back at the diagram of the difference between the composition and the master, and how many more avenues there are for the composition than the master. But let's do another question. When should I expect my retroactive royalties from Songtrust?
Usually it takes about 2 quarters before money starts coming into the account, sometimes longer for the retroactive stuff. It is a slow process. I mean, publishing moves very, very slowly. That's just kind of the nature of it. There's not really much we can do on our end. It really depends on the societies. The minute you register your songs, we try to send out those letters of direction immediately, but it takes a bit of time for everything to process on the society end. So yeah, usually about 2 quarters, sometimes faster, sometimes a little later. There isn't really like one answer to that question, but it will take some time. That's
you definitely
patience.
Yeah, to set like good expectations for most people that I talk to, I tell them not really to expect anything before 9 months after they have registered their songs with us. That's just like the average time span that we've seen the royalty payments come out, and then the retroactive royalties usually come a few quarters after that.
Yeah, and just to answer that SoundCloud question, it's so tricky and it changes all the time that I'm just reading on our own FAQ page about it, which you can check out if you have any other questions that you forgot to ask during this. But yeah, if you upload your music through a distributor and then put it out through SoundCloud that way on their premium or Premiere, then we can collect those mechanical royalties. But if you're just uploading it on a free account directly through SoundCloud, we can't monetize that. That's not how we work. But yeah, just to answer that, it just changes a lot, and I know SoundCloud recently has just changed their whole program in terms of monetization and stuff. So yeah, sorry about the little blunder there. But yeah, there's a whole FAQ article on our website about this,
which is help.songtrust.com.
Yeah, and then you can just you can type in any keyword and it'll help you with anything. If you remember a question after this or something.
Yeah, but we're still here to answer some more questions. So, how difficult is it to get retroactive royalties from my PRO? It's typically much more difficult to get retroactive royalties out of a PRO, especially when you're not working with a publisher. Like I said, we've had more luck with mechanical royalties in the past, but we do collect anything that's just sitting with any society once somebody becomes a client. So that's important to know.
I have some questions here if you want to jump to one of these. How long after I register my song with Songtrust will it show up in the society? That depends on if there was any errors that came up in our system, but usually it should be pretty quick. If it goes through seamlessly, it should be there that same week. Yeah,
I mean, it's tough because it depends on the society too, so we can never really give people an exact day, like, oh, expect your songs to be in their system in like a month. Because all the societies work on different timelines. Some societies still only use paper. So it's just, we can't really give an exact date, but you could just be sure that once you enter your songs into the Songtrust system, we will be accurately delivering that to all the societies.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, some of there's such a range of effectiveness from some of these societies, but usually it's as quick as we can possibly get it out into their hands. We do so. Yeah. Another question is, if you have a lot of songs registered with ASCAP, can you add them to Songtrust without paying a lot of fees? So there's kind of 2 parts of this question. When you create a Songtrust account and you already had an ASCAP account, you can actually download a PDF version of all the stuff you've already put into ASCAP and upload that into Songtrust without having to manually add each song into our system again after you've already done it on ASCAP. It'll save you a lot of time and it'll all be there. I think it usually takes like 3 days, and then it'll all
Yeah,
be
I think
in the
it's
system?
like about 48 hours
Yeah.
that our team usually
Turnaround.
estimates. But we do only offer that catalog transfer for larger catalogs. So if you have more than 30 songs, we'd be able to do that for you. Otherwise, it would just be a lot easier for our clients to add the individual songs.
Yeah, and as for the fee, we have a 50 song free. When you register, you have 50 free songs. So after that, you'd have to pay $10, I think.
Yeah.
For another 50, I believe.
It's 10 songs for $10.
Another. Okay, yeah, okay. Sorry.
That's okay. But once you reach that 50 song limit, you're able to buy 10 song credits for $10 in batches like that as you wish.
But yeah, so that kind of answers that question. So if you have a big catalog already on ASCAP, you can do that import right away.
Yeah.
And if it's under 50,
and there wouldn't be any fees for that. Okay.
I can last one. I represent 3 artists. Do I need to register my own publisher with you, or need to register each artist, all art composers too? It really depends on how you would like to approach it. You can create one. I guess are you asking like one? You can create one account and add each writer to that one, and do it that way. It really depends on how you're trying to approach it. So some people would like to keep it separate and create different accounts for different writers, so that they can look after their own account without having everyone looking at it. And especially if someone has like a bunch of other projects that they're working on besides from one main one. It really depends on how you want to do it. But every writer needs to be added if you want to collect for that writer.
Yeah. If you did decide to have one account as if you are a publisher, I can't really tell from the question, but if you are a publisher and you represent all 3 artists and you want to have the one account, you would be able to like track their individual royalty earnings.
Yeah, and as long as the splits were the same as whatever was registered in the society, if it was already in the society. So say you only had one writer, but you were dividing it up yourself later on your own terms, you can do that. Yeah. I hope that kind of helps answer that.
Let's see. Do we have time for more questions?
Yeah. Here's another one. Once your money goes into the black box, are you able to obtain that money if it hasn't already been given to Drake?
It has already been given to Drake. No, I'm just kidding. Well, we don't know exactly who it goes to, but once the money leaves the society's hands, we can't obtain that. There would be no way.
But there is that 2 to 3 year holding period where, if you register with us before 3 years or 2 years, we can get that money that is sitting in their account before it gets redistributed. So it's definitely worth jumping on if you have a song that or something that did well or has been doing well in the past year. Even it's just better to get on it sooner rather than later, because there's no definite answer to when it gets redistributed. It's just good to make sure you're on top of it early.
Yeah, definitely.
That's why we recommend writers handle this before they release the music. But obviously publishing is a tricky thing that not a lot of people know from the get-go, so we're trying to aim to change that.
Yeah.
If I sign up with Songtrust as a publisher, do I get more tools than an artist? No, there's a standard account that everyone gets. It really depends on how you want to use it though. I mean, if you're just a single artist and you're representing yourself, you can just create the account for yourself. But you can also add other writers as well if you want to manage. So as a publisher, you can have multiple writers on one account, and that's it's basically the same thing, but it's all the same.
All the accounts are the same. The only difference would be that there would be more writers on one account than the other. Yeah. But you would have to add each writer that you plan to collect for, you would have to add them as a songwriter to the account. So it would all be the same. Okay, well, we're going to wrap it up now because it looks like we're at our 30 minutes, but thanks for joining us.
If anyone has any questions that they want to ask us personally, here are emails, and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, always feel free to reach out to us.
Yeah.
And don't forget, like I said, Songtrust on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, any social media site that you like, and subscribe to our newsletter. And here we will keep our emails up for a few minutes so that you could jot them down if you want to reach out with any questions.
Thank you for the questions, and thanks for joining.
Yeah, bye guys.